Anticipation is the real fire, the spark that separates fleeting attraction from the kind of desire that consumes and lingers. Desire in its purest form does not ignite instantly. It is not born in the immediacy of touch or the bluntness of availability. Instead, it smolders in the unseen realm of the mind, growing quietly and visibly until it overwhelms. The paradox is clear. It is not what is offered freely that commands, but what is withheld with intention. To withhold is to create hunger, and hunger sharpens the appetite far more than abundance ever could. When everything is within reach, there is no urgency, no ache, no longing. But when something is withheld, when it lingers just out of reach, it acquires a power far greater than its own substance, a power fed by imagination, by curiosity, and by the irresistible pull of the forbidden. Consider how desire changes in the face of scarcity. A rare gem glitters brighter than a heap of common stones, not because it shines differently, but because it is not easily found. The same is true of human longing. The most powerful attraction is not rooted in what is seen, but in what is concealed. The mind, restless and searching, fills in the spaces of absence with fantasy, projection, and yearning. That invisible process is where true fire begins to burn. The body follows only after the mind has been captured. A gift unwrapped too quickly loses its thrill, but one wrapped in layers of delay and uncertainty becomes unforgettable. Withholding is not neglect, it is an art. To hold back with skill is to command attention without begging for it. It forces the other to lean forward, to question, to imagine what is hidden beyond the silence. This is why anticipation surpasses instant gratification. A fruit picked before its ripening tastes bitter, but left to mature under time and tension. It grows sweet beyond expectation. The fire of anticipation is that ripening process, one that makes every eventual experience more intoxicating than if it had been seized without resistance. The mind is the first battlefield of desire. Before the body even responds, the imagination is already at work, spinning possibilities, exaggerating qualities, creating depth where none yet exists. It is in that invisible theater that real seduction occurs. What is withheld fuels that theater, becoming larger, more magnetic, and more irresistible with every moment denied. Too much given too soon collapses that theater, leaving nothing to dream about, nothing to crave. But the slow burn, the drip of suggestion without full disclosure, keeps the fire alive. Anticipation is the architect of arousal, constructing walls of tension only to tear them down at the right moment for maximum effect. Restraint plays its role here. Those who can withhold, who can resist the urge to flood the moment with everything they have, hold power that others cannot. To deny is to command. To delay is to magnify. When silence replaces chatter, when mystery replaces explanation, the atmosphere shifts from ordinary to magnetic. Every glance becomes heavier, every pause feels longer, every gesture carries double meaning. This is how anticipation fuels desire. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, not by changing the thing itself, but by changing the perception of it. What is withheld is not lost, is multiplied. Like water behind a dam, pressure builds not from its absence, but from its containment. When finally released, it rushes with a force far greater than if it had flowed freely from the beginning. Desire functions in the same way. The fire does not lie in immediate indulgence, but in the patience of restraint, the willingness to hold back until the other cannot help but lean into the flame. Anticipation is the real fire because it burns silently before the first touch, before the first word, before anything visible happens at all. It is the unseen heat that turns curiosity into hunger and hunger into surrender. Mystery commands more than clarity because the human mind is drawn not to what is fully explained, but to what resists explanation. Certainty, in its finality, closes the door of imagination. When everything is revealed, the puzzle is solved, the questions vanish, and the fire of curiosity dies. But ambiguity leaves cracks and shadows, places where thought lingers, where desire grows restless, where intrigue refuses to loosen its grip. This is the essence of power and attraction. Influence and persuasion never give everything away, for what is incomplete holds more sway than what is complete. The greatest stories, the most memorable encounters, the deepest obsessions are never born from certainty. They are born from the tension of not knowing. When a book ends with questions unanswered, it echoes in the reader's mind long after the final page. When a person does not reveal every layer of themselves, they become larger than life in the imagination of others. Ambiguity is the oxygen of fascination. It allows the other to project, to wonder, to fantasize. What is half hidden becomes irresistible because the mind cannot resist filling in the missing pieces, and often it paints those pieces with colors more vivid than reality could ever provide. Clarity breeds predictability, and predictability dulls desire. To know every move before it happens is to fall into boredom, but mystery keeps the mind sharp and restless, always searching for the next revelation. This is why people are magnetized to the unknown, why the unsolved draws more attention than the solved. The mind is addicted to the unfinished, to the tension of incompleteness. It feeds on the ambiguity that keeps it guessing. Mystery is not emptiness, it is suggestion, the art of hinting without fully revealing. It creates an atmosphere where every glance, every pause, every silence is loaded with meaning that clarity would strip away. To command attention through mystery is to understand the rhythm of revelation and concealment. Too much darkness, and there is frustration, too much light, and there is no allure. The art lies in balance. in giving just enough to hold attention while withholding enough to keep it hungry. A whispered word carries more power than a shouted speech because it forces the listener to lean closer. A veiled truth has more impact than a blunt fact because it lingers in the mind, circling endlessly, seeking resolution. Ambiguity is not weakness, it is the very fuel of obsession. Mystery also elevates value. When something is rare, hidden, or difficult to grasp, it gains an aura that the ordinary can never possess. The concealed becomes sacred because it is not freely available. This principle applies to every realm of desire and influence. The one who cloaks themselves in mystery appears greater, not smaller, because the imagination magnifies what it cannot fully see. Certainty shrinks things to their actual size, but ambiguity allows them to expand endlessly in the mind of the other. Even silence can be a weapon of mystery. When every question is answered, there is no reason to ask again. But when silence leaves questions dangling, it compels pursuit. It demands attention without asking for it. This is why those who reveal too much too quickly lose their magnetism, while those who guard their depths, who release themselves piece by piece, hold others captive for far longer. To be mysterious is not to hide everything, but to understand that curiosity is more powerful than knowledge, and that the human mind craves pursuit more than possession. The paradox is that mystery commands precisely because it refuses to command openly. It does not announce itself, it lures. It does not impose clarity, it invites imagination. Certainty is final, but mystery is infinite, and it is infinity that keeps attention locked. Emotional safety precedes physical surrender because the body does not open where the mind feels threatened. No amount of force, insistence, or pressure can create the kind of intimacy that trust unlocks. Connection is the first key, trust is the second, and understanding is the third. Without them, desire remains guarded, the gates locked, the flame dim. When the heart feels secure, the body follows willingly, not out of obligation, but out of genuine surrender. Safety is the soil where intimacy grows, and without it, even the most passionate encounters feel hollow, fragile, or short-lived. Connection is not about constant words or exaggerated gestures, it is about presence, about being fully attuned to the other person in a way that makes them feel seen without judgment. When someone feels understood beyond the surface, when their emotions are acknowledged without being dismissed, a sense of safety is built brick by brick. That safety is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It creates an invisible atmosphere in which the other feels they can let go, where masks can be lowered and defenses can soften. Without this invisible foundation, intimacy collapses under the weight of fear or doubt. Trust is the bridge that transforms connection into surrender. Trust is not demanded, it is earned through consistency, through the absence of betrayal, through the quiet assurance that the other person will not be harmed for opening themselves. Force can take, but it can never receive. It can break down a door, but it cannot invite someone to step across the threshold willingly. Only trust makes the difference between resistance and acceptance. A body that responds under pressure is not truly surrendering, it is protecting, surviving, or tolerating. True surrender comes only when trust has dissolved fear, when the heart feels shielded from harm, when the mind believes it is safe to fall. Understanding deepens this process further. To understand is to listen without rushing to fix, to see without judgment, to recognize without distortion. Understanding is what tells the other, your emotions are valid here, your presence is secure here. When understanding is absent, insecurity takes root, and insecurity kills intimacy before it can bloom. But where understanding is present, vulnerability is no longer a risk, it becomes a gift. To be understood is to be given permission to open fully, to surrender not just the body but the spirit behind it. This is why force and pressure always fail in the long run. They may create compliance, but compliance is not desire. They may create motion, but not connection. They may create touch, but not intimacy. Pressure is a counterfeit form of intimacy because it skips the foundation and tries to leap directly to the result. What is achieved under pressure is fragile, shallow, and temporary. But what is unlocked through emotional safety is lasting because it is chosen freely, embraced willingly, and remembered deeply. Surrender, when born from safety, carries a richness that pressure can never reach. It is not merely physical, it is the complete lowering of guards, the total trust that one will not be harmed in their openness. It is a giving of the self without calculation or hesitation, a yielding that does not feel like loss but like liberation. Emotional safety makes this possible, and once it is established, the body follows naturally, effortlessly, without resistance. It is the silent agreement between two souls that no harm will come in the space they share, and from that agreement flows the deepest form of desire. The power of earned presence is not loud, nor is it desperate for recognition. It does not need constant affirmation or exaggerated gestures to be felt. True presence, the kind that holds attention without asking for it, is born from restraint, discipline, and silence carried with authority. When presence is earned, every small act becomes magnified, every glance grows heavier with meaning, every word echoes far beyond its sound. It is not the abundance of expression that creates influence, but the scarcity of it, the deliberate choice to give less so that what is given resonates more. Silence is the core of this presence. Many speak in order to fill the void, afraid that without words they will vanish. But the one who understands silence knows that it is not emptiness, but a force. Silence allows the atmosphere to thicken. It compels others to lean closer, to interpret, to feel the weight of what is unspoken. When carried with confidence, silence becomes louder than any speech because it speaks of control. It says without saying nothing needs to be proved. The one who can remain still, who does not rush to fill the air, communicates a mastery that frantic words could never achieve. This is why earned presence cannot be faked. It is the result of discipline, of not scattering one's energy, of not seeking validation through excess. A man who walks into a room without needing to announce himself often commands more attention than the one who clamors for it. His presence has been earned by the way he carries himself, by the steadiness of his gaze, by the calmness of his demeanor. This presence tells others that he does not beg for recognition because recognition is inevitable. Authority is not taken by volume but by weight, and weight is cultivated in silence. When presence is earned, the smallest actions are amplified. A single glance has the force of a speech, a brief pause feels like eternity, a touch carries layers of meaning. This is because scarcity sharpens perception. When something is rare, it is valued more. The one who speaks little, when finally choosing to speak, makes every word land with the weight of truth. The one who withholds attention, when finally giving it, makes that attention feel priceless. The one who holds back touch, when finally offering it, makes it unforgettable. The amplification comes not from the act itself, but from the restraint that preceded it. Earned presence also reshapes power dynamics. It forces others to adjust themselves, to lean forward, to seek to interpret. Rather than chasing attention, the one with presence makes attention chase them. This is not done through manipulation, but through the quiet force of self-control. By refusing to overexpose, by not scattering every thought, gesture, or feeling into the open, they create a field of magnetism around themselves. Others cannot help but be drawn to what is withheld, to the weight that silence suggests but does not reveal. The authority in silence is not arrogance. It is the opposite, it is steadiness. It is the refusal to prove what does not need proving. It is the knowledge that power does not come from excess but from focus. A candle in a dark room is more powerful than 100 in daylight because the context magnifies its light. In the same way, one word from the silent carries more meaning than a flood of words from the desperate. Presence is not measured by volume, but by impact, and impact is multiplied when scarcity surrounds it. The power of earned presence lies in the paradox that less creates more. By choosing restraint, authority is amplified. By embracing silence, meaning is deepened. By withholding, value is multiplied. When presence is earned, nothing needs to be exaggerated because the weight of being is already enough. In such presence, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and every small act carries the force of something unforgettable. Restraint is seduction's greatest weapon because desire feeds not on instant gratification, but on the ache of waiting. What is rushed quickly burns out, but what is delayed grows in intensity, becoming larger in the imagination than it ever could in reality. Indulgence gives pleasure, but restraint plants hunger that deepens with time, hunger that lingers, that refuses to be forgotten. This is the paradox of seduction: the less given, the more wanted. The slower the unveiling, the stronger the obsession. To withhold is not to weaken desire, but to make it uncontainable. The human mind is wired to chase what it cannot immediately possess. A treasure found too easily is tossed aside, but a treasure that must be earned becomes priceless. Restraint transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary by forcing the other to wait, to long, to imagine. It is in that gap between desire and fulfillment that true power lies. Every second of delay sharpens the appetite, every pause creates more pressure, until the final release feels 10 times greater than it would have if given at once. Restraint turns anticipation into an art form, and anticipation is the heartbeat of seduction. When everything is rushed, nothing holds weight. Immediate indulgence satisfies but also empties, leaving behind no depth, no memory. But restraint creates a different rhythm, one that stretches time, one that makes every moment feel heavier. A glance held and then withdrawn, a touch almost given but stopped short, a silence that lingers longer than expected. These plant seeds of longing that grow far beyond the moment. The power of seduction is never in what is shown instantly, but in what is suggested, hinted, and withheld. Restraint is the brush that paints desire across the imagination, leaving the other to fill in the gaps with their own fantasies. Restraint is not denial, it is mastery. It is the deliberate choice to slow the tempo, to resist the impulse to give everything away, to control not just the body but the atmosphere. It communicates that one is not ruled by impulse but by intention. And intention carries weight. The one who cannot hold back appears weak, consumed by their own urges. But the one who can restrain, who can withhold, who can delay until the moment of their choosing, radiates control and authority. This control is magnetic because it creates contrast. Restraint signals depth, patience, and power, qualities that make indulgence, when it finally arrives, infinitely more intoxicating. In the art of seduction, restraint works because it enlists the imagination of the other. What is withheld is not lost, it is magnified. The mind lingers on what is not yet given, turning it into something larger, more alluring, more irresistible. Restraint transforms a simple act into something mythic because the waiting stretches it beyond its ordinary shape. It is not the touch itself that becomes powerful, but the hours, the glances, the silences that preceded it. The body remembers what the mind has rehearsed over and over in the space created by delay. Restraint also ensures that desire never peaks too quickly. It keeps the flame alive rather than letting it consume itself all at once. Like a fire carefully tended, it is fed slowly, deliberately, so that it lasts longer and burns brighter. Every indulgence given at the right moment feels multiplied, not because it is more than before, but because it arrives after restraint has carved out a deeper hunger. Indulgence without restraint is fleeting. Indulgence after restraint is unforgettable. Restraint is seduction's greatest weapon because it inverts the natural impulse. Instead of rushing forward, it steps back. Instead of flooding, it drips. Instead of giving instantly, it waits. And in that waiting, in that pulling back, it creates a tension that cannot be faked. What is not rushed becomes irresistible because it allows desire to expand to its fullest size. What is delayed becomes a feast in the imagination long before it is tasted in reality. Restraint plants hunger that indulgence alone could never reach, because it awakens not only the body but the mind, and once the mind is captured, the body always follows. The shift from mind to body is the silent truth behind desire, for the body never acts without the mind's surrender. What appears as physical arousal is not the beginning but the echo, not the cause but the consequence. The mind is the gatekeeper, and until it yields, the body remains guarded, resistant, and touched by true depth. Arousal, then, is not simply a physical state, it is the visible reflection of an invisible victory, the point at which the mind finally lays down its defenses and allows the body to follow. The mind is a fortress built to protect, to judge, to question, to calculate. It measures risks, weighs intentions, and resists vulnerability. The body cannot fully open until the fortress weakens. That weakening does not come from pressure, but from persuasion, from trust, from the subtle erosion of resistance. It is a process that begins in silence and suggestion, in the quiet assurance that no harm lies ahead. When the mind feels safe, when curiosity overcomes fear, when intrigue outweighs caution, the drawbridge lowers and the gates swing open. Only then does the body mirror what has already happened within. This is why seduction is not a physical pursuit, but a psychological one. To rush the body without winning the mind is to force a door still locked, to stumble against resistance that will never truly dissolve. But when the mind is captured, when attention is hooked, when curiosity is fed, when imagination is ignited, the body responds with a natural inevitability. Nothing feels forced because nothing has been resisted. The body surrenders willingly because the mind has already chosen to. Victory over the mind is not loud, it is subtle. It is achieved not through pressure but through presence, not through demand but through suggestion. Words matter, but silence often matters more, for silence allows the imagination to work, and imagination is where desire multiplies. A well-timed glance, a pause, a withdrawal, all of these speak to the mind more powerfully than indulgence ever could. The mind thrives on puzzles, and when given fragments instead of fullness, it obsesses, it lingers, it cannot let go. This obsession is the beginning of surrender, for what the mind cannot stop returning to, the body eventually must follow. The shift from mind to body is also about patience. Impatience destroys the process, for it seeks the body before the mind is opened, and the result is shallow, fragile, short-lived. Patience allows desire to deepen, to grow roots that cannot be pulled out. When the mind surrenders slowly, the body's response is not fleeting but overwhelming because it carries the weight of longing that has been allowed to mature. This is why restraint and anticipation are so powerful. They prolong the battle in the mind until surrender is not just a possibility but an inevitability. The invisible victory is the most important one. To see the body respond without having first touched the mind is rare, shallow, and unsustainable. But to see the body surrender as a reflection of a mind already conquered is to experience something far deeper. It is the difference between compliance and devotion, between reaction and surrender. The body cannot resist what the mind has already accepted. When the mind yields, the body's response is not an act, but a flood, a natural overflowing that cannot be contained. True arousal, then, is not about the body at all. It is about the invisible realm of thought, imagination, trust, and curiosity. It is about bypassing fear, disarming defenses, and creating a space where surrender feels safe, even desired. Once the mind has fallen, the body has no choice but to follow, and what follows is not mechanical but complete. The shift from mind to body is the essence of desire, the unseen surrender that makes the visible one inevitable.